Before the Supreme Court declared bans on same-sex marriage unconstitutional in 2015, LGBTQ couples were denied the financial advantages that come with being married. Chief among those were survivor benefits. If your spouse dies, you can apply to receive Social Security checks under certain circumstances. Because the benefits were only available if the marriage lasted at least 9 months, couples in which a partner died shortly after the Supreme Court ruling or who were barred from marriage altogether could not access that money. But in the wake of 2 federal lawsuits on the issue, the Biden administration is now going to pay thousands of dollars a month to surviving partners of same-sex couples who were discriminated against. An average of $1,500 per month is going to surviving spouses, as well as those who can prove that they would have been married before 2015. If you previously applied for the benefits and were denied, the Social Security Administration will also retroactively pay a lump sum for the years the agency missed. The Social Security Administration has contacted 700 people who were previously turned away to let them know that they are now eligible. It's a historic move to rectify some of the injustices done to LGBTQ Americans, but it also begs the question, why aren't reparations just like this available for African Americans? How much longer can the enduring legacy of enslavement and discrimination go without redress when we know there is money available? Joining me now to discuss, David Johns, Executive Director of the National Black Justice Coalition. So, David, this is a delicate conversation because this is not oppression Olympics, as people often say. We're not trying to pit one group against another. Everybody who was done wrong by American policies needs to be repaired for the wrong that was done to them. But the problem becomes black people sit and they watch other people get those reparations. But when it comes to black people and reparations, it just feels like they keep saying, we need to study it, we need to pass a bill, we need to go through this, where's the money gonna come from, how are we gonna pay it? All of the fences go up when it comes to black people. How do you see what's happening here?
I see it through the lens of our ancestors who offer the tools of intersectionality to help us see both this problem and solutions in multicolors. So what's important for me to acknowledge is when we think about and applaud the work of the Biden-Harris administration and providing resources to families that were denied it based on legal understandings of marriage, is that there are right now Black LGBTQIA+ couples who existed in same-sex or same-gender loving or queer relationships who are not yet considered eligible for those benefits based on interpretation of existing policy and knowledge around how it is that we think about and celebrate relationships. And so I say this to complicate even how it is that we start this debate, because there isn't 2 separate binaristic groups where there are Black people on one side and LGBTQ people on the other side. There are folks like myself who exist in the intersections in between both. And so what I want to offer is that we should be able to do both, and we should be able to celebrate existing efforts to provide necessary reparations for individuals who are deserving of them with regards to marriage. And we should have more meaningful conversations about how to extend those same provisions and acknowledgement of historical wrongs to Black folks who were the descendants of enslaved Africans who continue to be impacted by transatlantic enslavement in this country in particular.
I want to drill down on that. You've been saying you're at the intersection, because I am also at the intersection of this. And I want to just ask you kind of a more personal question about how you navigate those 2 worlds, because I often find that when you try to advocate for Black power, Black enlightenment, Black liberation, that there is a lot of homophobia in that sphere. Like the first thing that they say, not you, like, don't you speak for us, or all the negative connotations around that. And I also feel sometimes that they don't make the connection that you just made. That you can have one foot in one world, one foot in another world, and neither of those 2 can you divest yourself of. Like there's no way to say, oh, this one is the higher priority for me. They're both parts of me. How do you negotiate that, and how do you talk about that to people who you're advocating for both these groups, because both of them are parts of you?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and I'm smiling, acknowledging that the short answer is carefully. In this moment, I'm drawing upon data that I've collected from young people who have shared with me their experiences navigating public schools, which are social institutions in this country who are responsible for maintaining social disorder. And many of them talk about not engaging in conversations that don't allow for an acknowledgement of and really a celebration of our intersectional identities. So much of what frustrates me about conversations connected to reparations, specifically in critical race theory more generally, is that there are really attempts from those who hide hate and bigotry behind religious objections and feigned attempts to support democracy, but they're really attempts to divide us and separate us and to otherwise avoid naming truths as what they are and talking about things so that we can heal and repair and move on from them collectively and together. And so I say this because Patricia Hill Collins, a Black feminist who has talked about intersectionality, which is a principle we learned from Native and Indigenous people, allows us to understand that most of us have intersectional identities. The vast majority of people in America, as well as throughout the world, have intersectional identities. And it's important for us to not only name them theoretically, but to talk about them in practice. And so as we talk about reparations, for me as a Black, same gender loving man, it is always important to acknowledge that there is work to be done to ensure that we have access to racial equity. And there's work to be done to ensure that we address the harms associated with LGBTQIA plus bias. What I love and celebrate is that there's been a lot of work done by Black folks over the years. And I say this acknowledging that we're having this conversation in Black History Month. The vast majority of Black people that I have access to understand the lesson of Fannie Lou Hamer, which is that none of us are free unless and until all of us are free. And they understand that applying an intersectional lens to policy and advocacy and action is critically important in that regard. There is still a minority who believes the lie that white supremacy tells, that homosexuality is a sin that people choose. And when I think about that and reparations, I go back to the Bible, which reminds me that when we do the work to show up for the least of these, those of us who do good while also trying to do well are able to be free. And so my hope is that we still do the tough work of fighting through the stigma so all of us can be happy, healthy, and whole.
Thank you for that sermon, Pastor Johns. You preached that. now, quickly, I have about a minute left here. I want to just get to the politics of this. You know, how does the Biden administration negotiate this? It does look, just on the surface, you can do it. The administration itself can take steps to provide reparations that does not require a legislation, and they're doing it here.
Yes.
How do they deal with the Black people who are going to say to them, inevitably, you can do it? Why not also extend this to Black people?
They very much should, and they can do so by, again, acknowledging that in existing actions, there are ways to lead with an equity lens and prioritize those of us with intersectional identities, and they can do more. They can look to the example of HR 100, which is offered by Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and establish a commission to study and make recommendations around reparations and really the Truth and Reconciliation, which would offer symbolic recompense more than monetary recompense. They can also look at HR 40 offered by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, which takes it a step further and marries those symbolic actions with more meaningful monetary actions. All of this to say that there are examples, both domestically, that have been offered by members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and globally, whether we look to our neighbors in the North who have done this, acknowledging the harms that have been done by Indigenous people who were stolen and placed in schools to rob them of their cultures, are throughout the world. There are examples that we can follow, and we should do more for Black people specifically.
David Johns, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it.